The morning sun rose over the wheat fields of Kepler 442b, painting the golden stalks in shades of amber and orange. Captain Elena Reeves stood on the porch of her farmhouse, a cup of synthetic coffee steaming in her hands. The air smelled of earth and growing things, exactly the way she liked it. She had come to this frontier world 5 years ago to escape the memories of her military service. Here she could be just a farmer, just a person trying to grow food and live quietly. Her communicator buzzed. She ignored it at first, watching the sunrise instead. The device buzzed again, more insistent this time. With a sigh, Elena pulled it from her belt and checked the screen. Her blood went cold. The message was from Orbital Station 3. 3 words that changed everything. They are here. Elena ran inside her house and activated the emergency broadcast system. Within minutes, every person on Kepler 442b received the same message. The Vraxians had arrived. The colony had exactly 1 hour to prepare. 10,000 colonists lived on Kepler 442b. They were farmers, miners, engineers, teachers, and families who had traveled across the stars to build a new life. They were not soldiers. Well, most of them were not soldiers. About 500 had military backgrounds like Elena. They formed what the colony generously called the Colonial Defense Forces. They had some weapons, some training, and a lot of farming equipment that could be converted into something useful. Dr. James Chen rushed into the community center where Elena was organizing the defense. He was the colony administrator, a thin man with gray hair and worry lines permanently etched into his forehead. He looked even more worried than usual. "Elena, we need to evacuate," James said, his voice shaking. "I've been monitoring their communications. There are 200 warships up there." 200! We have nothing that can fight that. Elena looked at him calmly. She had fought in the border conflicts before retiring. She knew what warships could do. She also knew something James did not. "We're not evacuating," she said firmly. "This is our home. Besides, where would we go? Our transport ships can't outrun their fighters. We'd be sitting ducks in space. Then what do?" James asked desperately. "We fight," Elena said simply. "And we buy time." "Time for what?" "For the real military to get here." James stared at her. "The garrison fleet is 3 weeks away. We got the message this morning. Even if they left immediately, we'd be dead long before they arrived." Elena smiled, but there was no humor in it. "I'm not talking about the garrison fleet." Before James could ask what she meant, the Vraxian broadcast began. Every screen in the colony flickered to life, showing the face of War Primus Thexeril. He was a Vraxian, which meant he looked like a cross between a lizard and a bear, with scaled skin, sharp teeth, and 4 eyes that glowed with golden light. His armor was decorated with symbols that represented 40 conquered worlds. Humans of Kepler 442b. Thexeril's voice was deep and rumbling, translated automatically by the computer. "I am War Primus Thexeril of the Vraxian Empire. You are now subjects of the Empire. You have 1 hour to surrender completely. Lay down any weapons. Prepare to be relocated to work camps. Resistance will be met with total extermination. This is your only warning." The broadcast ended. James looked at Elena with terror in his eyes. "Work camps? Elena, they're going to enslave us." "I know," Elena said. She activated her communicator. "All defense forces report to your positions. Civilians move to the underground shelters. We have 45 minutes. You're really going to fight them?" James whispered. "Yes, we'll die." "Maybe," Elena agreed. "But we'll die free. And we'll make them pay for every inch of ground." The next hour was chaos. Families rushed to underground shelters that had been built for tornado protection, not alien invasion. The 500 members of the Colonial Defense Forces moved to defensive positions around the colony's main settlement. They had hunting rifles, some mining explosives, and a handful of actual military weapons that Elena had kept from her service days. It was pitiful compared to what was coming, but the colonists had one advantage. They knew the terrain. They had spent 5 years turning this planet into farmland. They knew every hill, every valley, every place where the ground was soft or hard, and they had mining equipment. Big mining equipment. Elena stood in what they called the Valley of Promise, a long stretch of land between 2 ridges where most of their crops grew. She had 300 defenders with her. The other 200 were scattered in other positions. If the Vraxians wanted this valley, they would have to come through a killing ground. The Vraxian ships began landing 2 hours after the broadcast. Massive troop transports touched down 5 kilometers from the main settlement. Elena watched through binoculars as the landing ramps lowered. Out came the Vraxian shock troops, thousands of them, armed with plasma rifles and wearing powered armor. They marched in perfect formation, confident and unstoppable. Thexerol led them personally. Elena could see him at the front, his armor more elaborate than the others. He was making a statement. This would be quick and easy. Just another primitive species learning their place in the galaxy. The Vraxians entered the valley. Elena waited. Beside her, a young man named Marcus trembled as he held his rifle. He had been a college student before coming to Kepler 442b. Steady, Elena whispered. Wait for my signal. The Vraxians marched closer. 1 kilometer. 800 meters. 500 meters. They showed no caution. Why would they? These were just farmers. Now, Elena said quietly into her communicator. The valley exploded. Not with bombs, but with the earth itself. The colonists had spent the previous hour planting mining charges along the valley walls. When they detonated, thousands of tons of rock and soil came crashing down on the Vraxian formation. The aliens scrambled, their perfect lines breaking apart. Their powered armor could protect them from bullets, but not from being buried under tons of debris. Before they could recover, the second wave hit. The colonists opened fire from elevated positions, targeting weak points in the Vraxian armor. Joints, visors, power packs. Elena had studied Vraxian equipment during her military service. She knew where to aim. The Vraxians returned fire, plasma bolts scorching the air. 2 defenders near Elena fell, their bodies burned beyond recognition. But more colonists kept firing. They used hit-and-run tactics, firing from one position then moving to another before the Vraxians could target them. Then the mining machines arrived. Massive industrial vehicles designed to carve through rock. The colonists had welded armor plates onto them and mounted improvised weapons. They were slow and clumsy, but they were big enough to ram Vraxian troops and durable enough to take plasma fire. Thexerol watched in disbelief as his elite shock troops were pushed back by farmers driving mining equipment. This was not supposed to happen. These were primitive colonists. They should have surrendered immediately or died within minutes. The battle lasted for 6 hours before the Vraxians retreated to regroup. They left behind over 300 dead. The colonists had lost 47 defenders. Elena knew it was unsustainable. They could not win this fight. But that was not the point. That night, Elena sent a message to Earth. It was short and simple. We can hold for another week. Tell them not to bother with the garrison fleet. Send the real military. Thexerol intercepted the message. He read it 3 times, trying to understand. The real military? What did that mean? These defenders were not real military? He accessed the human databases his intelligence officers had captured. What he found made his blood run cold. The colonial defense forces were local militias. They were listed in human records as Tier 3 defense. There was a Tier 2, garrison fleets, massive formations of warships stationed throughout human space for system defense. And then there was Tier 1, the Sol Defense Force and the expeditionary fleets, the actual human military. Their location was classified. Their capabilities were classified. Everything about them was classified. But there were references scattered through the database. Training exercises that simulated fighting entire fleets simultaneously. Weapons tests that measured yields in terms of planetary surface sterilization efficiency. Casualty ratios from historical conflicts that seemed impossible. Thexerol realized with growing horror that he had been fighting the equivalent of a town's local police force, and they had bloodied his nose. What would happen when the real military arrived? He sent an urgent message to the Vraxian homeworld, requesting reinforcements and orbital bombardment authorization. But deep in his gut, he felt something he had not experienced in decades of conquest. Fear. Elena sat in her farmhouse that night, cleaning her rifle. Around her, exhausted defenders grabbed a few hours of sleep. Outside, the Vraxian forces prepared for another assault at dawn. James entered quietly and sat down across from her. We lost 47 people today, he said softly. I know. Was it worth it? Elena looked at him. Ask me that question in a week. Will we be alive in a week? Maybe, maybe not. But James, here's what matters. Every hour we hold is another hour for people at home to know what happened. To know that someone invaded a human colony. To know that we fought back. She smiled grimly. and to get really, really angry about it. You think they'll come? I know they will. Earth doesn't leave its people behind. Never has. Never will. James nodded slowly. How long until they arrive? Elena checked her communicator. She had received a coded response to her message. Just 2 words, but they were enough. 2 days, she said. We just need to survive 2 more days. Outside, the Vraxian forces prepared their assault. They had brought more troops, more weapons, more firepower. Thexril was determined to crush this resistance before reinforcements could arrive. He had his pride and his reputation to consider. But in the darkness between the stars, something was moving. Ships were accelerating to faster-than-light speeds, racing toward Kepler 442b. Not the garrison fleet. Something much bigger, much more dangerous. The real military was coming, and the Vraxian Empire was about to learn a lesson that would echo across the galaxy for generations. Never attack human civilians, because humans remember, and when they come for you, they come with everything they have. Elena did not sleep that night. She stood on her porch looking up at the stars, waiting for dawn. Waiting for the next battle, waiting for salvation or death. But she was not afraid. She had done her duty. She had protected her people. And somewhere up in those stars, someone was coming to help. She whispered into the night, "Just hold on a little longer. They're coming." War Primus Thexril stood in the command center of his flagship, the Endless Victory, and stared at the holographic display showing the battle below. 3 days had passed since the initial assault. 3 days of brutal grinding combat. His forces had advanced exactly 12 kilometers into the colony territory. 12 kilometers that had cost him 3,000 soldiers, 3,000 elite shock troops dead, killed by farmers. His communication officer approached nervously. Vraxians could smell fear, and right now the entire bridge crew reeked of it. They had all expected an easy victory. They had all been wrong. War Primus, the Grand Magistrate, demands a status report, the officer said quietly. Thexril's 4 eyes narrowed. He did not want to make this report. He did not want to admit that a colony of 10,000 primitives had held off his invasion force for 3 days. But orders were orders. He activated the long-range communicator. The holographic image of Grand Magistrate Vel appeared, his scales dark with anger. Vel was old, even by Vraxian standards, and he had overseen the conquest of hundreds of worlds. He did not tolerate failure. "Report, War Primus," Vel commanded. "The human colony continues to resist," Thexril said carefully. "They are more resourceful than anticipated. They use guerrilla tactics and have converted their industrial equipment into weapons. Our casualties are higher than expected." "How much higher?" Thexril paused. 60% of the initial invasion force." Silence. Vel's image flickered, as if the Grand Magistrate could not believe what he had heard. "You have lost 3,000 soldiers taking a farming colony?" "Yes, Grand Magistrate, these are primitives. They have been spacefaring for less than a century." "How is this possible?" That was the question Thexril had been asking himself for 3 days. He had captured some human defenders during the fighting. He had interrogated them personally, trying to understand. What he learned terrified him. "Grand Magistrate, I believe we have made a critical error in our assessment of humanity," Thexril said slowly. "The defenders we are fighting are not military personnel. They are civilian militia. According to captured databases, the humans classify their military into 3 tiers. Vel leaned forward. "Explain." Thexril pulled up the information he had extracted. Tier 3 is Colonial Defense Forces. These are local militias with minimal training and basic equipment. This is what we are currently fighting. Tier 2 is called Garrison Fleets. These are dedicated system defense forces. Each human colony system has approximately 300 warships stationed permanently for defense. And Tier 1? The Sol Defense Force and Expeditionary Fleets. The actual human military. Their primary base is the Sol system, Earth's home system. Their numbers, capabilities, and locations are classified beyond what we could access. Vel's expression shifted from anger to calculation. "You are telling me that we are struggling against their lowest tier of military organization?" "Yes, Grand Magistrate. And there is more. I interrogated a captured human soldier yesterday. He was a member of their Tier 3 forces. When I asked him why they fought so hard, he laughed at me." "Laughed?" "Yes," he said, and I quote, "You idiots attacked civilians. Our real military hasn't seen combat in 30 years. They're bored. And now you've given them a reason to fight." Thexril paused. Grand Magistrate, I have reviewed human history from their own databases. These beings spent thousands of years fighting each other. World wars, nuclear weapons, biological warfare. They nearly destroyed themselves multiple times. They unified their species only after learning how to kill each other in the most efficient ways possible. Vel was silent for a long moment. What are you saying, War Primus? I am saying that we may have made a catastrophic mistake. We assumed humans were like other young species. Naive, weak, divided. But their history suggests something different. They are not young. They are survivors, and their military doctrine is not based on conquest. It is based on survival against extinction-level threats. Before Vel could respond, alarms blared across the bridge. The sensor officer shouted, "War Primus!" Multiple gravitational distortions detected at the system edge. Something is coming out of faster-than-light travel. Thexrel rushed to the sensor station. The display showed hundreds of contacts appearing at the edge of the star system. No, not hundreds, thousands. Ship signatures unlike anything in the Vraxian database. They were massive, organized into precise formations, and moving with purpose toward Kepler 442b. How many? Thexrel whispered. Still counting, War Primus. Current count, 2,347 vessels, ranging from Corvette class to Dreadnought class. Energy signatures are off the scale. 2,000 ships. The Vraxian invasion force was 200 vessels. They were outnumbered 10 to 1. Grand Magistrate, Thexrel said quietly. They are here. Meanwhile, on the other side of the galaxy, Ambassador Sarah Okoro stood before the Galactic Council. The council chamber was a massive spherical room where representatives from 47 different species gathered to discuss matters of galactic importance. It was supposed to be neutral ground where conflicts could be resolved through diplomacy. Sarah was a tall woman with dark skin and gray hair pulled back in a tight bun. She had been humanity's ambassador to the council for 15 years. She had spent those years building relationships, establishing trade agreements, and trying to convince the galaxy that humans were peaceful neighbors. Now all that work was threatened. The council members sat in their assigned sections arranged by species. Most looked concerned. Some looked frightened. A few looked smug, as if humanity getting attacked proved something they had always believed. The council speaker, a floating crystalline entity called a luminar, chimed in its musical language. The translator rendered it into standard Galactic. Ambassador Okoro, we have received reports that a Vraxian fleet has engaged human colonists at Kepler 442b. The Vraxian Empire claims they were within their rights to expand into unclaimed territory. What is humanity's response? Sarah looked at the Vraxian representative, Ambassador Kreth, who sat smugly in his section. He clearly thought humanity would complain and then accept defeat, that humanity was too young and weak to challenge the mighty Vraxian Empire. Kepler 442b is not unclaimed territory, Sarah said calmly. It is a registered human colony. 10,000 civilians live there. They are farmers, teachers, engineers, and families. The Vraxian Empire launched an unprovoked military assault on a civilian population. Kreth rose from his seat. The territory was not properly registered with the Council. Any species may claim unregistered worlds. This is galactic law. We registered Kepler 442b 5 years ago, Sarah replied. She projected documents onto the central display. Here are the filed claims, all properly submitted and accepted by the Council administration. The Vraxian Empire ignored these claims and attacked anyway. The council chamber erupted in whispered conversations. The Luminar speaker chimed for order. If this is true, then the Vraxian Empire has violated council law. However, military action has already begun. What does humanity seek from this council? Sarah looked directly at Kreth. We seek nothing from this council. We are simply informing you of what will happen next. The Vraxian Empire attacked our civilians. They refused our diplomatic attempts to resolve this peacefully. Therefore, humanity is responding with military force. We are informing the Council as a courtesy, not asking for permission. Kreth laughed. Your species has barely 300 warships spread across your colonies. We have invaded with 200 of our finest vessels. Even if you gathered your entire fleet, you would be evenly matched at best. And we are the Vraxian Empire. We have conquered 40 worlds. Your threats are empty. Sarah smiled, but it was not a friendly smile. Ambassador Kreth, you are correct that we have approximately 300 warships stationed at each of our colony systems. Those are our garrison fleets. They are Tier 2 defensive forces meant to protect against pirates and minor threats. Kreth's smugness faltered slightly. Tier 2? Yes. The forces you encountered at Kepler 442b were Tier 3, colonial defense forces, civilian militia. You have been fighting farmers for 3 days and lost 3,000 soldiers. Sarah paused, letting that sink in. The fleet that is currently entering the Kepler 442b system is our Tier 1 military. The actual human navy, 2,347 warships to be precise. The council chamber went silent. Kreth stared at her in disbelief. That is impossible. No species maintains such a large military. It would be economically unsustainable. For most species, yes, Sarah agreed. But humanity learned something during our species development. We learned that the cost of maintaining a strong military is always less than the cost of being invaded. We call it an insurance policy. We hope we never need it, but when we do need it, we have it ready. The council speaker chimed urgently. Ambassador Okoro, are you saying humanity has been hiding its true military strength from the council? We have not hidden anything, Sarah replied. We simply did not advertise it. Our Tier 1 military has been training and preparing for 30 years without seeing combat. They run simulations. They develop tactics. They improve their weapons. And they wait for someone to give them a reason to fight. She looked at Kreth again. The Vraxian Empire just gave them that reason. Kreth's confidence was gone now. He looked genuinely worried. This is madness. You would risk galactic war over one colony? We would risk everything for our people, Sarah said quietly. That is the difference between us and you. You conquer because you want to expand. We fight because we refuse to let anyone harm our civilians. Ever, for any reason. Another council member, an insectoid being from the Chitara hive, spoke up. Ambassador Okoro, if humanity possesses such military power, why have you not used it before? Why have you not expanded your territory or demanded better trade terms? Sarah turned to face the Chitara representative. Because we do not want an empire. We want neighbors. We want trade partners. We want friends. Our military exists for one purpose, to ensure no one ever tries to hurt our people. We built it after nearly destroying ourselves. We remember what war cost. We remember what it feels like to be on the losing side, and we decided that we would never, ever be vulnerable again. She pulled up another display showing human military history, images of ancient battles, world wars, nuclear explosions, cities destroyed. Our species fought each other for thousands of years. We developed weapons that could end all life on our planet. We came close to using them. We learned, the hard way, what happens when you are not prepared to defend yourself. So we prepared. We prepared for every possible threat. We built ships that could fight entire fleets. We trained soldiers who could fight for years without resupply. We created weapons we hoped we would never use. And we made a promise to every human in the galaxy. We will come for you. No matter where you are, no matter who threatens you, we will come. The council chamber was completely silent now. Every species present was reevaluating their understanding of humanity. This young species that had seemed so peaceful, so eager to trade and cooperate, had been hiding a military that rivaled the greatest empires in the galaxy. Sarah looked around the chamber. The Vraxian fleet at Kepler 442b has approximately 48 hours before our Tier 1 forces arrive. I am authorized to offer them one chance to surrender and withdraw. If they refuse, they will be destroyed. This is not a negotiation. This is a fact. Kreth stood, his scales pale with fear. I must contact my government immediately. You do that, Sarah said coldly. And tell them this, humanity does not want war. But if you bring war to us, we will end it. Quickly, completely, and permanently. As the council session ended, representatives from various species approached Sarah. Some wanted to express support. Others wanted reassurance that humanity would not turn its military against them. Sarah answered each one calmly and diplomatically. But inside she felt a cold determination. The Vraxians had made a terrible mistake. They had attacked humans. They had killed colonists who were just trying to live their lives in peace. And now they would learn what humanity did to those who threatened their people. Later that night, Sarah received a coded message from Admiral Marcus Webb, commander of the expeditionary fleet approaching Kepler 442b. It was short. 42 hours until arrival. We'll offer surrender. If refused, we'll engage. Expect total victory within 1 hour of engagement beginning. 1 hour. Admiral Webb expected to destroy a 200-ship Vraxian fleet in 1 hour. Sarah had reviewed the battle plans. She knew he was not exaggerating. The galaxy was about to witness what happened when humanity went to war, and it would change everything. Admiral Marcus Webb stood on the bridge of the UNS Indomitable, a Valkyrie-class dreadnought that served as the flagship of the human expeditionary fleet. Around him, his crew worked in calm efficiency, monitoring systems and preparing for combat. The bridge was quiet except for the soft hum of machinery and the occasional status report. Marcus was 60 years old, gray-haired and hard-faced. He had joined the military at 18 and spent 42 years preparing for a war he thought might never come. Humanity had been at peace for 3 decades. The last conflict had been a brief skirmish with space pirates near the outer colonies. His fleet had trained constantly, running simulations against hypothetical enemies always ready but never called upon. Until now. The tactical display showed the Kepler 442b system ahead. 2,347 human warships were emerging from faster-than-light travel at the system's edge. The formation was perfect. Every ship in exactly the right position. This was the result of 30 years of training. 30 years of preparing for this exact moment. Status report, Marcus said calmly. His executive officer, Commander Lisa Park, responded immediately. All ships have successfully transitioned to normal space. All systems are green. Weapons are charging. We are at battle stations. No casualties during transition. Good. Have we detected the Vraxian fleet? Yes, sir. 217 vessels in orbit around Kepler 442b. They are forming defensive positions, reading elevated energy signatures. They are preparing to fight. Marcus nodded. He had expected this. The Vraxians were a proud species. They would not surrender easily, even though they were massively outnumbered. Pride made people stupid. Pride got people killed. Open a channel to the Vraxian flagship. All frequencies. I want everyone in the system to hear this. Channel open, Admiral. Marcus looked directly at the camera. His expression was cold, emotionless. Vraxian forces. This is Admiral Marcus Webb of the United Nations Space Command. You have attacked our civilians. You have killed our people. You have invaded our territory. You have one chance to avoid total destruction. Power down your weapons. Disable your ships. Surrender immediately. You have 5 minutes to comply. If you refuse, we will destroy you. This is your only warning. He nodded to Commander Park, who closed the channel. Now they waited. On the Endless Victory, War Primus Thexral watched the human fleet approach. 2,000 ships. They moved in perfect formation like a single living organism. He had never seen anything like it. Even the most disciplined Vraxian fleets could not maintain such precision across so many vessels. His communication officer spoke nervously. War Primus, we are receiving orders from the homeworld. Grand Magistrate Vel commands us to engage the human fleet. We are not to surrender. Our pride demands we fight. Thexral stared at the tactical display. 200 ships against 2,000. Pride. Pride was going to kill them all. He thought about the human soldier he had interrogated. The one who had laughed at him. The one who said the real military had been bored. This was the real military. And they were not going to show mercy. Prepare for combat, Thexral ordered. He had his orders. He would follow them, even if it meant his death. On the surface of Kepler 442b, Captain Elena Reeves watched the sky through her binoculars. She could see the flashes of light as ships moved into position. The human fleet had arrived. She felt tears running down her face, but she did not bother to wipe them away. They had held for 5 days. 5 days of brutal combat. She had started with 500 defenders. Now she had 234. They had lost so many people. But they had held. They had bought enough time. Elena, Dr. James Chen said quietly beside her. Is it really over? Soon, she replied. Very soon. Above them, Admiral Webb's 5 minutes expired. The Vraxian fleet had not powered down. They had not surrendered. They had chosen to fight all ships, Marcus said calmly. Engage at will. Target weapon systems first. Disable, do not destroy if possible. But if they continue fighting, eliminate them. Execute. The human fleet opened fire. It was not like battles shown in entertainment media. There were no dramatic laser beams slowly traveling through space. There were no grand explosions visible to the naked eye. Modern space combat happened at relativistic speeds with weapons that moved so fast they were almost impossible to track. The human ships fired railguns that accelerated projectiles to a significant fraction of light speed. Each projectile carried kinetic energy equivalent to a small nuclear weapon. They fired missiles with autonomous guidance systems that could think for themselves, adapting to enemy countermeasures. They used point defense grids consisting of thousands of small lasers that could intercept incoming fire with perfect accuracy. The Vraxian fleet tried to respond. Their plasma cannons fired, sending superheated matter toward the human ships. Their missile batteries launched, filling space with explosives. But the human point defense systems were too good. Every incoming projectile was destroyed before it could reach its target. Every plasma bolt was intercepted or deflected. Meanwhile, human railgun rounds slammed into Vraxian shields at velocities that made them impossible to stop. Vraxian shield technology was considered the best in the galaxy. It had protected them through 40 successful conquests. But it had never faced kinetic weapons moving at such extreme velocities. The shields failed within seconds, their generators overloaded by the sheer energy of the impacts. Without shields, Vraxian ships were vulnerable. Human weapons targeted specific systems with surgical precision. Weapons arrays were destroyed. Engine compartments were crippled. Command bridges were hit with rounds that punched through armor like it was paper. The Vraxians tried different tactics. Some ships attempted to ram the human vessels, hoping to use their mass as a weapon. Human point defense systems tracked them and destroyed their engines before they could get close. Other Vraxian ships tried to scatter, breaking formation to make themselves harder to target. The human fleet adjusted instantly, their networked combat systems coordinating fire across all 2,000 ships simultaneously. It was like watching a professional fighter face an amateur. The human fleet moved with purpose and precision, while the Vraxian fleet struggled and failed. This was the result of 30 years of training, 30 years of simulations, 30 years of preparing for every possible scenario. Thexrel watched his fleet die. Ship after ship went dark, their systems destroyed, their crews killed or injured. He tried to rally his forces, ordering counterattacks and new tactics. Nothing worked. The humans were too fast, too coordinated, too efficient. "War Primus!" his sensor officer shouted. "Multiple human ships are targeting our vessel directly. We are being bracketed by fire from 30 different ships." Thexrel looked at the tactical display. 30 human warships had focused their attention on his flagship. He understood what they were doing. They were sending a message. They were showing him that they could kill him whenever they wanted. "Evasive maneuvers," he ordered. The endless victory turned hard, trying to escape the kill zone. But the human ships adjusted their fire with impossible precision. Railgun rounds hammered into the ship's shields. The generators screamed as they tried to absorb the energy. They failed. A human missile penetrated the shield barrier and struck the Endless Victory's port side. The explosion tore through 3 decks, killing dozens of crew members. Alarms blared throughout the ship. Fire suppression systems activated. The ship was dying. "Engineering reports critical damage to the main reactor," the damage control officer reported. "We are losing power. Weapons offline. Engines at 20%. Thexrel stared at his command display. 43 minutes had passed since the battle began. He had started with 217 ships. Now he had 74. The rest were destroyed or disabled. And the human fleet had not lost a single vessel, not one. "War Primus," his communication officer said quietly. "The Grand Magistrate is ordering us to fight to the last ship. He says we must not show weakness." Thexrel thought about the human soldier who had laughed at him. He thought about the colonists who had fought so hard. He thought about how the humans had tried to warn them, tried to give them a chance to withdraw peacefully. And he thought about pride that was killing his soldiers for no reason. "No," Thexrel said. "Sir?" I said no. "Open a channel to the human flagship. Send a surrender signal." But the Grand Magistrate ordered. "The Grand Magistrate is not here watching his soldiers die for nothing." Thexrel roared, "I am, and I will not waste more lives on his pride. Open the channel." The communication officer hesitated, then complied. A moment later, Admiral Webb's face appeared on the screen. "This is War Primus Thexrel," Thexrel said, his voice heavy with defeat. "I am surrendering my fleet. We will power down our weapons and prepare to be boarded. I request that you cease fire and allow us to evacuate our wounded." Marcus studied the Vraxian commander for a moment. He saw exhaustion. He saw defeat. He also saw something like relief. "Surrender accepted," Marcus said. "Power down all weapons systems. Transmit your casualty counts. We will send medical teams to assist with your wounded. Any ship that attempts to flee or fire weapons will be destroyed immediately. Do you understand?" "I understand. Thank you for showing mercy." Marcus's expression did not change. "We do not show mercy to aggressors, War Primus. But we do not kill unnecessarily. Your wounded will receive the same medical care as our own. Your prisoners will be treated according to the rules of war. But make no mistake, you attacked our people. You killed our civilians. There will be consequences." The screen went dark. Thexrel slumped in his command chair. Around him, his bridge crew began powering down their systems. It was over. They had lost. In less than 1 hour, the mighty Vraxian invasion fleet had been utterly destroyed by an enemy they had dismissed as primitive. On the surface of Kepler 442b, Elena watched as the fighting in orbit suddenly stopped. The flashes of weapons fire ceased. A moment later, her communicator buzzed. She answered it. "Captain Reeves." Admiral Webb's voice was calm and professional. "This is Admiral Webb of the Expeditionary Fleet. The Vraxian forces have surrendered. You and your people are safe. We are sending medical teams and supplies to the surface." "Well done, Captain. You held long enough. Your people can rest now." Elena felt her legs give out. She sat down hard on the ground, her rifle clattering beside her. Around her, other defenders were reacting the same way. Some were crying. Some were laughing. Some just sat in stunned silence. James knelt beside her. "We survived." "We survived," Elena agreed. Then she looked up at the sky where the human fleet orbited, and they came for us, just like I said they would. But even as the immediate danger ended, Admiral Webb was receiving new orders from Earth. Orders that made him read the message 3 times to make sure he understood correctly. The message was simple. The Sol Defense Force is mobilizing. Destination Vraxian Home System. This is no longer about Kepler 442b. This is about making sure no one ever attacks a human colony again. Proceed to Vraxian space. Show them what happens when they threaten our people. Marcus read the orders and nodded slowly. The Expeditionary Fleet had won the battle. But the war was just beginning. And when the Sol Defense Force arrived, the core of humanity's military, the forces that had never left Earth's system, the Vraxian Empire would learn what it meant to truly face humanity at war. He turned to Commander Park. "Prepare the fleet for immediate departure. Destination, Vraxian space. We have new orders." "What orders, sir?" Marcus smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "We are going to teach an empire a lesson they will never forget." Fleet Admiral Catherine Zhang stood in the command center of the UNS Eternal Vigilance, a Titan-class command ship that was the largest vessel humanity had ever built. Around her, hundreds of officers coordinated the movement of over 5,000 warships. This was the Sol Defense Force, the military formation that had defended Earth's home system for 30 years without ever leaving to fight. Until now. Catherine was 73 years old, but her mind was still sharp and her determination absolute. She had spent her entire adult life preparing for this moment. She had run simulations of every possible war scenario. She had studied every conflict in human history. She had learned from every victory and every defeat. And now, finally, she was taking her fleet to war. The holographic display showed the Vraxian border, 2 weeks travel away at maximum speed. Intelligence reports indicated that the Vraxian Empire had 15 major military installations scattered across their territory. Shipyards, weapons platforms, fleet bases, command centers, the infrastructure that supported their ability to wage war. Catherine's orders were clear. Dismantle Vraxian military power. Make it impossible for them to ever threaten a human colony again. But do it without killing civilians. Do it with precision. Show the galaxy that humanity could be both merciful and terrifying. "Admiral," her communication officer spoke up. "We are receiving a priority transmission from Ambassador Okoro at the Galactic Council." "Put her through." Sarah Okoro's face appeared on the screen. She looked tired but determined. "Admiral Zhang, I wanted to inform you that the Galactic Council is in emergency session. Multiple species are attempting to broker peace. They are afraid. Afraid of what? Of you. Of what humanity is about to do. Several council members have suggested that your fleet represents a threat to galactic stability. They worry that once you defeat the Vraxians, you might turn your attention to other species. Catherine smiled coldly. Then they misunderstand us completely. We are not conquerors, Ambassador. We are defenders. But perhaps it is time the galaxy understands exactly what that means. What do you need from me? Broadcast my message to the entire Galactic Council. All frequencies. I want every species to hear what I have to say. Sarah nodded. Transmitting now. You are live to the Council. Catherine straightened and looked directly at the camera. She knew that representatives from 47 different species were watching. She knew that her words would be analyzed and debated for years to come. She chose them carefully. Members of the Galactic Council. This is Fleet Admiral Catherine Zhang of the United Nations Sol Defense Force. I am addressing you so that there is no confusion about humanity's intentions. The Vraxian Empire attacked a human colony. They killed our civilians. They refused diplomatic solutions. They chose war, so we will give them war. She paused, letting her words sink in. But understand this, we do not want an empire. We do not want to conquer your worlds. We do not want to rule the galaxy. We want only one thing, to be left alone, to live in peace, to trade fairly, to be good neighbors. But if anyone threatens our people, if anyone attacks our colonies, if anyone kills our civilians, we will respond with overwhelming force. Catherine activated a tactical display that showed the Vraxian Empire's territory. Over the next 2 weeks, human forces will systematically dismantle Vraxian military infrastructure. We will destroy their shipyards. We will eliminate their weapons platforms. We will disable their fleet bases. We will remove their ability to wage war. But we will not target civilian populations. We will not bombard cities. We will not commit genocide, because we are not them. She looked directly into the camera again. Let this be a lesson to every species in the galaxy. Humanity has prepared for war since we reached the stars. We have built weapons you cannot imagine. We have trained soldiers who can fight for years without rest. We have created a military that exists for one purpose, to protect our people. We hoped we would never need it. The Vraxians proved that hope was naive. So now you will see what happens when humanity goes to war. Watch carefully. Remember what you see, and never ever attack a human colony again. The transmission ended. Sarah Okoro's face reappeared. That should give them something to think about. How are they reacting? Panic mostly. The Vraxian representative just collapsed. The other species are demanding emergency sanctions, peace negotiations, anything to stop what is about to happen. Good, Catherine said. Fear is a useful teacher. Perhaps the galaxy will learn something. 2 days later, the human offensive began. Admiral Webb's expeditionary fleet struck 15 Vraxian military installations simultaneously. It was a coordinated assault across multiple star systems timed to the second, designed to overwhelm Vraxian defenses before they could respond. At each target, the human ships followed the same doctrine. They arrived in overwhelming force. They broadcast a warning giving the Vraxian personnel 5 minutes to evacuate. Then they opened fire with precision weapons that destroyed military infrastructure, while minimizing casualties. At the Vraxian shipyard of Keltos Prime, 300 human warships appeared at the system's edge. The shipyard was enormous, capable of building 50 warships simultaneously. It was defended by orbital weapons platforms and a garrison fleet of 100 vessels. The human ships did not hesitate. They accelerated to combat speeds and broadcast their warning. 5 minutes for evacuation. The Vraxian commander refused to evacuate, ordering his forces to fight. The battle lasted 18 minutes. Human missiles struck the weapons platforms with such precision that they detonated the ammunition storage without destroying the crew compartments, giving the Vraxians time to evacuate. Human railguns targeted the shipyard's structural supports, causing it to break apart rather than explode. The Vraxian garrison fleet tried to engage but was disabled quickly. Their ships left adrift but intact. The shipyard was destroyed, but the casualty count was remarkably low. Most of the Vraxian personnel had evacuated to nearby planets. Those who had not were picked up by human rescue ships and treated for injuries. The same pattern repeated at every target. Overwhelming force, minimal casualties, complete destruction of military capability. The human forces were showing the galaxy something terrifying. They could kill you whenever they wanted, but they chose mercy instead. That restraint was somehow more frightening than brutality would have been. On the Vraxian homeworld of Vraxis Prime, Grand Magistrate Vel watched the reports coming in. 15 military installations destroyed in a single day. Thousands of ships disabled. Decades of military buildup eliminated in hours. And the human forces had barely taken any casualties. His military advisors were panicking. His government officials were demanding action. His people were terrified, and Vel finally understood the mistake he had made. He had thought humans were weak because they were young. He had thought they were naive because they seemed peaceful. He had believed that their small territorial claims meant they lacked ambition. He had been completely wrong. Humans were not weak. They were careful. They were not naive. They were prepared. They did not lack ambition. They had simply chosen not to conquer because they did not need to. They had everything they wanted, and they were willing to defend it with absolutely ruthless efficiency. "What are our options?" Vel asked his military council. "We can attempt to defend our remaining installations," the war minister replied. "But intelligence suggests the human fleet is only getting stronger. Their sole defense force has not even engaged yet. They are holding that force in reserve." "In reserve for what?" "We believe they are preparing to attack our homeworld if we do not surrender." Vel felt his blood run cold. They would not dare. Attacking a homeworld violates every galactic convention. The war minister looked at him grimly. "Grand Magistrate, they are not attacking our civilians, they are attacking only our military. But if they wanted to destroy Vraxis Prime, they could. Our defenses could not stop them. Nothing we have could stop them." Meanwhile, War Primus Thexerel sat in a human detention facility on Kepler 442b. He had expected to be executed or tortured. Instead, he had been given medical treatment for his injuries, fed regularly, and housed in comfortable conditions. His guards were professional and respectful. It made him feel worse somehow. Dr. James Chen visited him regularly. The colony administrator seemed to have forgiven him, or at least was willing to talk. Today, James brought news from the front. "Your military installations are being destroyed," James said without preamble. 15 gone in the first day. More being targeted now. Your empire is being systematically dismantled. Thexerel looked up. "How many casualties?" "Among your forces, surprisingly few. The human military is giving evacuation warnings. They are using precision weapons. They are even rescuing your wounded." "Why?" "Because we are not you," James said simply. "We do not enjoy killing. We do not conquer for sport. We fight only when we must, and even then, we try to minimize death." "Then why build such a massive military?" Thexerel asked. "Why prepare for war if you do not want to fight?" James sat down across from him. "Because we learned, the hard way, what happens when you are not prepared. Our history is filled with invasions, conquests, genocides. We were victims and perpetrators both. We nearly destroyed ourselves multiple times. When we finally unified and reached the stars, we made a promise. Never again. Never again would we be vulnerable. Never again would we allow anyone to harm our people without consequence." He pulled up a display showing Earth's defensive installations. Massive orbital fortresses, weapons platforms that could destroy entire fleets, defense networks that surrounded the entire planet. "This is what Earth looks like," James said. "Our homeworld is the most heavily defended location in the galaxy. We have enough firepower in orbit to fight off an invasion by every other species combined. We built it not because we are aggressive, but because we are terrified. Terrified of being weak. Terrified of being conquered. Terrified of being victims again." Thexerel stared at the display. "You are afraid?" "Always," James admitted. "Fear is what drives us. Fear of what others might do. So we prepare for everything. We build ships we hope never to use. We train soldiers for wars we pray never happen. We create weapons we wish did not need to exist. And when someone like your empire comes along and proves our fears right, we respond with everything we have." "Is there no limit to your military power?" James smiled sadly. "Oh, there are limits. We cannot fight the entire galaxy at once. We cannot be everywhere simultaneously. But we can make sure that anyone who attacks us regrets it. We can ensure that the cost of fighting humanity is always higher than any potential gain. That is the point. We do not want to be the strongest. We just refuse to be weak enough to be worth attacking." Thexeral was silent for a long time. Then he asked, "What will happen to me?" "You will stand trial for war crimes. You ordered attacks on civilians. You refused to accept surrender offers. You bear responsibility for the deaths of my friends and neighbors, but you will receive a fair trial. You will have legal representation. And if you are convicted, you will be imprisoned, not executed, because even for you we show mercy. I do not deserve mercy." "No," James agreed. "You do not, but we give it anyway, because that is who we are. We are not monsters, Thexeral. We are people who have seen what monsters do, and we refuse to become them, even when facing those who hurt us." As James left, Thexeral sat alone in his cell and thought about everything he had learned. He had served the Vraxian Empire for 50 years. He had conquered 40 worlds. He had believed his empire was the greatest military power in the galaxy. And then he had met humanity, a species that did not want to conquer, a species that wanted only to be left alone, but a species that would fight with terrifying ferocity when threatened. He realized now that the Vraxian Empire had doomed itself the moment it attacked Kepler 442b. Not because humanity would destroy them completely, but because humanity would ensure they could never threaten anyone again. They would dismantle every weapon, disable every ship, eliminate every threat, and they would do it with cold, calculating efficiency. The door opened again. A human soldier entered, a young woman with tired eyes. "War Primus Thexeral, you have a visitor. Grand Magistrate Vel wishes to speak with you via hologram." Thexeral looked up in surprise. Vel appeared as a holographic projection, and he looked old and defeated. "War Primus," Vel said quietly, "I am ordering the Empire to surrender, full and complete. We cannot win this war. I wanted you to hear it from me personally. Your actions in surrendering your fleet early saved thousands of lives. You were right to do so. I was wrong to order you to fight. What will the terms be? Total demilitarization, war crime tribunals, 50 years of supervised peace, complete reparations to the human colonies." Vel paused. "The humans are being generous considering what we did. They could have destroyed us completely. Instead, they are giving us a chance to rebuild as a peaceful people." Thexeral nodded slowly. It was better than they deserved. Much better. And somewhere in the darkness between stars, the Sol Defense Force continued its inexorable advance toward Vraxian space, ready to finish what the expeditionary fleet had started. Fleet Admiral Catherine Zhang stood on the observation deck of the Eternal Vigilance and watched as her fleet entered Vraxian space. 5,000 warships moved in perfect formation, surrounding every major Vraxian world simultaneously. It was a display of force designed to leave absolutely no doubt about the outcome of this war. The operation was called Protocol Ragnarok, though not because it involved weapons of mass destruction. Ragnarok was humanity's siege doctrine, developed from thousands of years of military history. It was simple and devastating: complete isolation. Cut off every supply line, block every communication channel, surround every important target, then wait. Let the enemy understand their helplessness. Let them realize that resistance was futile. Catherine activated the fleet-wide broadcast system. Her message would reach every Vraxian world, every military installation, every government facility. People of the Vraxian Empire, this is Fleet Admiral Catherine Zhang of the United Nations Sol Defense Force. Your military has been defeated. Your government has surrendered. But I want you to understand something important. We are not here to conquer you. We are not here to enslave you. We are here to ensure you can never threaten our people again." She paused, letting the translation systems catch up. "Your leadership attempted to use biological weapons against human colonies. That attempt was intercepted and prevented. If we wanted you dead, you would already be gone. Every major city on every Vraxian world is currently targeted by our weapon systems. We could sterilize your entire species within hours. But we will not, because that is not who we are. On Vraxis Prime, billions of Vraxians watched the broadcast. They saw the human fleet in orbit, saw the massive warships that dwarfed anything their empire had ever built. They heard the human admiral's words and felt something they had not experienced in centuries: fear. Not fear of death, But fear of having made a terrible mistake. Catherine continued. Instead of destruction, we offer you a choice. Your empire can dismantle its offensive military capability. You can hold tribunals for those who committed war crimes. You can pay reparations to the families harmed by your actions. And you can rebuild as a peaceful civilization. If you do this, humanity will help you. We will share technology. We will establish trade. We will be neighbors, not enemies. But if you refuse, if you attempt to rebuild your war machine, we will return. And next time we will not be so patient. The broadcast ended. Catherine turned to her executive officer, Commander David Torres. How are they responding? Most Vraxian worlds are broadcasting acceptance of the surrender terms. A few military hardliners are calling for continued resistance, but they have no support. The Vraxian people are exhausted. They want this to end. Good. Maintain the blockade until we receive formal surrender documents, and prepare humanitarian aid shipments. They will need food and medical supplies after we destroyed their military infrastructure. Torres looked surprised. We are going to help them? Yes, we destroyed their ability to wage war. That affects their civilian infrastructure too. We will not punish their people for their government's mistakes. Show them that humanity can be both strong and compassionate. Meanwhile, Ambassador Sarah Okoro stood before the Galactic Council once more. This time, the chamber was filled with nervous energy. Representatives from every species watched her with new respect and fear. The Luminar speaker chimed. Ambassador Okoro, the Vraxian Empire has formally surrendered. Human forces have established blockades around all major Vraxian worlds. What are humanity's intentions? Sarah looked around the chamber. Humanity's intentions are exactly what we said they would be. We will dismantle Vraxian offensive military capability. We will ensure they cannot threaten anyone for at least 50 years, and then we will leave them alone to rebuild as a peaceful civilization. We do not want their territory. We do not want their resources. We want only assurance that they will never attack our people again. Ambassador Kreeth of the Vraxian Empire rose slowly. He looked like he had aged decades in the past few weeks. The Vraxian government accepts all terms. We acknowledge our crimes. We will cooperate fully with human oversight. We ask only for mercy for our people, who did not choose this war. Your people will be treated fairly, Sarah replied. Humanitarian aid is already being prepared. Human medical teams will assist with casualties from the conflict. We will help rebuild damaged civilian infrastructure. But understand this, we will be watching. For the next 50 years, human observers will monitor your military development. Any attempt to rearm will be met with immediate response. The council chamber was silent. Then, unexpectedly, the Chitara Hive representative spoke. Ambassador Okoro, I must ask a question that troubles many species here. Humanity has demonstrated military capabilities that exceed most galactic empires. You claim you do not want conquest. But how can we trust this? History shows that powerful species eventually become aggressive. Sarah had expected this question. She pulled up a holographic display showing Earth. This is humanity's homeworld. Look at it carefully. What do you see? The display zoomed in, showing the massive defensive installations surrounding the planet. Orbital fortresses the size of small moons. Weapons platforms that could generate enough firepower to destroy entire fleets. A defensive network so dense that it would take coordinated attacks by multiple empires to breach it. This is what human paranoia looks like, Sarah said quietly. We spent 3 decades building these defenses. We have enough military power to fight off an invasion by every species in the galaxy combined, and yet we have never used it for conquest. Why? Because we are not driven by ambition. We are driven by fear. She pulled up images from human history, ancient wars, world-ending weapons, cities destroyed by nuclear fire. Our species nearly destroyed itself multiple times. We fought wars that killed hundreds of millions. We developed weapons that could end all life on our planet. We came so close to extinction that it left scars on our collective psyche. When we finally unified and reached the stars, we made a promise: never again. Never again would we be vulnerable. Never again would we allow anyone to harm our people. Sarah looked directly at the Chitara representative. You ask how you can trust us. I will tell you. You can trust us because we remember what war costs. We remember what it feels like to lose. We remember the price of aggression. Other species build militaries to expand their power. We built ours to ensure we would never be powerless again. That is the difference. Another representative stood, a species called the Diluvians. But Ambassador, surely such military power creates temptation. Surely humanity will eventually use it for expansion. Why would we? Sarah asked simply. What could we gain through conquest that we cannot achieve through trade? What benefit comes from ruling unwilling subjects? What glory exists in forcing others to submit? Our history taught us that empires always fall, that conquest breeds resentment, that true strength comes from cooperation, not domination. She pulled up another display, this one showing human colonies, small scattered settlements focused on agriculture, research, and peaceful development. Look at what we have built. Farming colonies, research stations, trading posts. We could have claimed hundreds of worlds by now. We have the military power to do so, but we chose not to, because we do not need an empire. We have everything we want. Peace, prosperity, security. Why would we risk that for the burden of ruling others? The council chamber was silent as the representatives absorbed her words. Sarah continued, I understand your fear. You see our military and assume we will become conquerors. But you misunderstand the purpose of that military. It exists not to attack, but to prevent attack. It is insurance against aggression. It is deterrence against those who would harm us. The Vraxian Empire learned this lesson. We hope no other species needs to learn it the same way. The Luminar speaker chimed thoughtfully. Ambassador Okoro, what you describe is unprecedented in galactic history. Most powerful species use their strength to expand. Humanity appears to use strength to avoid conflict. This is unusual. It is the result of hard-won wisdom, Sarah replied. We paid for this wisdom with billions of lives lost in our own wars. We do not want others to pay the same price. That is why we are willing to share our technology, why we offer trade agreements, why we seek cooperation rather than domination, because we learned that true security comes from having allies, not subjects. Dr. James Chen sat in his office on Kepler 442b, reviewing reconstruction plans. The colony had survived, but barely. 267 colonists had died during the Vraxian invasion. Hundreds more were injured. The agricultural infrastructure was damaged. It would take years to fully recover, but they would recover. Humanity was already sending aid. Engineers to help rebuild, medical personnel to treat the wounded, counselors to help with the psychological trauma. And funding. Lots of funding. The Vraxian reparations were generous and the human government was matching them. Captain Elena Reeves entered his office. She had been formally discharged from the Colonial Defense Forces and returned to farming. But the experience had changed her. She moved differently now, more alert, always watching. The memorial service is ready, Elena said quietly. All 267 names are inscribed. The monument will be dedicated tomorrow. James nodded. Will you speak at the ceremony? If you think I should. I do. You led the defense. You kept us alive long enough for help to arrive. The people need to hear from you. Elena was quiet for a moment. What do I say to the families of the dead? How do I justify their sacrifice? You do not justify it, James replied. You honor it. You tell them their loved ones died protecting their home, protecting their neighbors, protecting their children, and you tell them that humanity has ensured this will never happen again. The next day, 10,000 colonists gathered at the memorial site. The monument was simple but powerful. A black stone wall inscribed with 267 names. Above the names, a single phrase. They held the line. Elena stood before the crowd and spoke. I am not good with speeches. I am a farmer. I was a soldier once, but I came here to escape that life. To grow things instead of destroy them. But when the Vraxians came, we all became soldiers. Farmers, teachers, miners, engineers. We all picked up weapons and fought for our home. She looked at the names on the wall. 267 people died during the defense of this colony. They died defending their neighbors, protecting their families, holding the line until help could arrive. Some of them were my friends. Some I barely knew, but every single one of them was a hero. Elena's voice grew stronger. The Vraxians thought we would surrender easily. They thought we were soft. They thought that because we chose to be farmers, we had forgotten how to be warriors. They were wrong. We held them for 5 days. 5 days against a force that had conquered 40 worlds. 5 days that cost them thousands of casualties. 5 days that proved something important. Humanity does not bow. Not to threats. Not to force. Not ever. She looked out at the crowd. Today we remember those who fell. Tomorrow we rebuild. And every day after, we live the lives they died defending. We plant our crops. We raise our families. We laugh and love and grow old. That is their legacy. That is their victory. They held the line so that we could continue living. So let us live well. Let us make their sacrifice mean something. The ceremony ended in silence, broken only by quiet weeping. But there was also pride. Pride in their fallen. Pride in their resistance. Pride in being human. 10 years later, Dr. James Chen retired from his position as colony administrator. He spent his time teaching history at the colony's new university. One day, a student asked him about the war. Dr. Chen, why do humans maintain such a large military if they do not want to fight? James smiled. He had been asked this question many times. Come with me. I want to show you something. He took the student to a museum the colony had built. Inside was an exhibit about the invasion, weapons used in the defense, recordings of the battles, testimonials from survivors, and at the center a display showing human military organization. Look at this, James said, pointing to the display. Humanity has 3 tiers of military. Tier 3 is colonial defense forces like what we had here. Local militia with basic training. Tier 2 is garrison fleets, permanent system defense forces. And Tier 1 is the Sole Defense Force and expeditionary fleets, our actual military. The student studied the display. But why maintain Tier 1 if we have Tier 2 and 3? Because the galaxy is vast and dangerous, James replied. Because peaceful intentions do not protect against hostile actions. Because we learned, through terrible experience, that being unprepared invites attack. He pulled up historical records showing Earth's own wars. My ancestors fought in conflicts that killed hundreds of millions. They developed weapons that could destroy all life on our planet. They came close to using them. When humanity finally unified and reached the stars, we made a choice. We would never again be vulnerable. We would prepare for wars we hoped would never happen. We would build weapons we prayed never to use, and we would ensure that anyone who threatened our people would face overwhelming force. So we maintain a military out of fear? Out of wisdom, James corrected. Fear would make us aggressive. Wisdom makes us prepared. We do not attack. We do not conquer. We do not seek glory through war. But if someone attacks us, if someone threatens our civilians, if someone kills our people, we respond with everything we have. That is the price of attacking humanity. That is the lesson the Vraxians learned. The student looked thoughtful. What happened to the Vraxian Empire? They rebuilt as a peaceful federation. They disarmed their offensive military. They held tribunals for war criminals. And they became one of our closest allies. It took time. It took forgiveness on both sides. But now they trade with us. They work with us. They even defend alongside us against other threats. Because they learned that humanity offers friendship to those who seek peace, and destruction to those who choose war. James walked to the window overlooking the colony. The rebuilt farms stretched to the horizon. Children played in the streets. Life had returned to normal. This is why we maintain our military. Not to conquer, not to dominate, but to ensure that scenes like this can exist without fear, to guarantee that colonists can farm in peace, that children can grow up safe, that humanity can prosper without constantly watching the skies for invasion. The ancient Romans had a phrase for this, James continued. Si vis pacem para bellum. If you want peace, prepare for war. We do not want war. We desperately want peace. But we learned that peace only exists when you are too strong to be worth attacking. So we prepare. We train, we build, and we hope we never need any of it. The student nodded slowly, understanding. And if we do need it, then the galaxy will remember what happens when you threaten a human colony. They will remember the Vraxian Empire. They will remember that humanity showed restraint even in victory. And they will decide that trading with us is much more profitable than fighting us. Outside the museum, the twin suns of Kepler 442b set over the wheat fields, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson. The memorial stood silent, a reminder of sacrifice and courage. And high above, invisible to the naked eye, human defense satellites maintained their eternal vigil. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Humanity was not the strongest species, but they were strong enough that no one wanted to test them. They were not the most advanced, but they were advanced enough to defend themselves. They were not the oldest or wisest, but they remembered their history and learned from their mistakes. Most importantly, the galaxy learned that humans meant what they said. They wanted peace. They offered friendship. They sought cooperation. But if you attacked their people, if you killed their civilians, If you threatened their colonies, they would come for you with overwhelming force and terrifying efficiency, not because they were cruel, not because they enjoyed war, but because they had learned the hardest lesson in the universe, that the only way to maintain peace is to be prepared for war. That the only way to protect the innocent is to be capable of destroying the guilty. That the only way to ensure your people can live in safety is to make attacking them too costly to contemplate. The Vraxian Empire had learned this lesson at tremendous cost. The galaxy watched and took note, and humanity continued its quiet expansion, building farms and research stations, always ready but never aggressive, always watchful but never paranoid, always strong but never tyrannical, because in the end, that was what made humanity truly terrifying, not their weapons, not their ships, not their military doctrine, but their restraint, the knowledge that they could destroy you but chose not to, the understanding that mercy was the privilege of the strong, the wisdom that true power meant never needing to prove it. The galaxy had feared humanity would become conquerors. Instead, they became something far more dangerous, protectors. And the difference, as the Vraxians discovered, was everything. Years passed. The scars of war faded but were not forgotten. Captain Elena Reeves grew old on her farm, teaching younger generations about the defense of Kepler 442b. War Primus Thexrel, after serving his sentence, became an advocate for peace, traveling across Vraxian worlds and speaking about the folly of aggression. Ambassador Sarah Okoro retired from the Galactic Council, satisfied that her message had been heard and understood. The Vraxian Empire transformed. Without the burden of maintaining a massive military, their economy flourished. Their people, freed from constant military service, pursued art, science, and philosophy. They became known not for conquest, but for their beautiful music and advanced mathematics, and they became humanity's staunchest allies, understanding better than anyone what humans were truly capable of. Other species took notice. Trade with humanity increased. Defense pacts were signed. The human model of peaceful expansion with strong defensive capabilities became something to emulate rather than fear. The galaxy did not become unified or perfect, but it became more stable, more peaceful, because everyone understood the new reality. Attacking a human colony was suicide, not because humans would exterminate you, but because they would dismantle your ability to ever threaten anyone again, and they would do it with such overwhelming force, such precise execution, and such deliberate restraint that you would spend the rest of your existence grateful they had shown mercy. In the Sol system, the massive defense network remained. The ships continued their training. The soldiers ran their simulations, but they did so quietly in the background, a silent promise to every human living among the stars. We are here, we are ready, and we will always come for you. Fleet Admiral Catherine Zhang, now 90 years old and long retired, gave one final interview before her death. The reporter asked her the same question everyone asked. Do you regret building such a powerful military? Do you think humanity went too far? Catherine thought for a long moment before answering. I regret that it was necessary. I regret that the galaxy proved us right to be afraid. I regret every life lost in the Vraxian War on both sides. But do I regret ensuring humanity could defend itself? Never, not for a single moment. Why? The reporter pressed. Because I remember what we were fighting for. Not territory, not glory, not power. We were fighting so that a farmer on Kepler 442b could watch the sunset without fear, so that children could play in the streets of our colonies, so that families could build lives among the stars without constantly worrying about invasion. That is what our military protects. Not borders, not governments, people. Individual human beings trying to live their lives in peace. Catherine looked directly at the camera. Humanity learned a lesson that took us thousands of years and billions of deaths to understand. Peace is not natural. It is not easy. It is not guaranteed. Peace must be protected, defended, and maintained constantly. The price of peace is eternal vigilance. The cost of security is perpetual preparation, and the foundation of freedom is the strength to defend it. She smiled, tired but satisfied. We built the largest military in the galaxy. We developed weapons that terrify our neighbors. We trained soldiers who could fight for decades without rest. And we used that power to ensure that war became too expensive to wage. That is our legacy. Not conquest, not domination, but peace through strength, safety through preparation, freedom through vigilance. And if another species attacks a human colony, Catherine's smile faded, replaced by cold determination. Then they will learn the same lesson the Vraxians learned. Humanity does not start wars, but we end them, quickly, completely, and with absolute certainty that they will never happen again. The interview ended. Catherine Zhang died peacefully 3 weeks later, surrounded by family. Her funeral was attended by thousands, including former enemies who had become friends. The Vraxian Federation sent a delegation that spoke of her fairness, her mercy, and her strength. The Galactic Council observed a moment of silence in her honor, and in orbit above Earth, the Sol Defense Force maintained its watch. Ships patrolled the darkness. Sensors scanned for threats. Soldiers trained for wars they hoped would never come, because that was humanity's promise to itself and the galaxy. We want peace. We offer friendship. We seek cooperation. But if you threaten our people, if you attack our homes, if you harm our civilians, you will face the full might of humanity, not with anger, not with hatred, but with cold, calculated efficiency born from thousands of years of warfare and tempered by the wisdom of restraint. The galaxy learned to respect that promise, and in respecting it, they helped create the peace humanity had always wanted. The real army never had to deploy again, because everyone remembered what happened the first time it did.